Good Shabbos, everyone. There's a very famous saying, it's not what happens to you in life, but it's how you deal with what happens to you in life. Okay, great. But so how does that help me? How does it help me and you deal with what happens in life? You know, sometimes a lot of challenges in life. So what I'm going to share with you today, a beautiful insight in this week's Torah portion, can be a game changer for me and you in our life if we could apply it. This week's Torah portion, it tells us the story of the failure of Moses sending 12 spies to the land of Israel. And the reason why it failed is because they were supposed to go to the land of Israel to just tell them how they could enter the land. And when the spies came back, 10 out of the 12 said, there's no way for us to conquer it, let's not go into Israel. And the Jewish people said, no, we don't want to go to Israel. So God told Moses, fine, they don't want to go, they're not going to go, and they're all going to die in the desert, which that generation all died out in the desert. Fast forward 40 years later, Joshua, who was one of the 12 spies, who was actually him and Caleb, were the only, two that came back and spoke positive. He says, okay, Moses passed away, I'm going to now lead the Jewish people into Israel. And what does he do? He sends spies. The rabbi says, you know what, the worst thing in history is you don't learn from past history. You keep doing the same mistakes. Joshua, you should know firsthand the mess up of sending spies. Why did Joshua do it again? Himself, he did it. So the rabbis give different answers. One answer they give is because when Moses sent, he sent the 12 greatest leaders, the greatest minds. So they started using the intellectual understanding, it doesn't make sense, there's giants. They should have had faith in God. If God said we're going to conquer the land, even though intellectually it doesn't make sense, it's going to happen. You know, the greatest proof there's a God is the Jewish people. Versus Joshua sent two simple people. He said, your whole job is not to come back and philosophize, could we conquer the land? Your whole job is to actually go and do it and tell us which route we should take. Jewish mysticism gives another explanation, according to Kabbalah, which is such a beautiful explanation that I think could be a life-changing. He says there was another difference between Moses and Joshua, why Moses failed and Joshua was successful. Moses wanted the people to check out the whole land of Israel, versus Joshua only sent them to Jericho. What's the difference? The difference is, according to Jericho, why the city of Jericho? By the way, why did Joshua pick the city of Jericho? Because Jericho was considered like the lock of Israel. If you could break through Jericho, everything else is going to fall down. In Jewish mysticism, it explains that in the land of Israel, in Canaan, there were 7 nations. On a Kabbalistic level, the Jewish mysticism, that 7 nations represents our 7 emotions. Chesed, Gvura, Tferes, kindness, stringency, beauty, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. And what did Jericho represent? It represents Machshava, Dibur, Ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. Moses wanted us to conquer our emotion. That he failed. Joshua wanted us to conquer our thought, speech, and action, and that you could be successful. My dear friends, this is the message I want to bring out to you today. You know, we all deal with demons, we all deal with challenges, we all deal with struggles. And we have 2 options. One option is to go into our essence, and I want to change myself internally. And the other option is not internally, but to change myself externally. What does internally and what does externally mean? Internally means my emotion. Let's use a simple thing. I like ice cream, right? You like vanilla ice cream. To work on yourself to stop liking vanilla ice cream. That's almost impossible. You like to gossip. Work on yourself to stop liking to gossip. You like to do whatever else, to fill in the blank, and everyone can think of their things. To be dishonest, to lie, to cheat, lazy, whatever the things may be. So you can work on yourself and changing that I don't want to become that person anymore. That's something very difficult. So then what should I do? Should I give it to it? No. But why is it very difficult? Because it's very hard for us to have control, to change that we shouldn't like ice cream anymore or cookies anymore, and fill in the blank for whatever our weakness that we're not happy about, losing our temper or whatever things may be. But what do we have control over? We do have control over our thought, our speech, and our action. And I'll give you an example. You know, a lot of times you put it on YouTube or you go on other websites and there's pop-ups. So you can't control the pop-up, but you could control, are you going to click onto it, or you can hit the X and shut it off. That means what happens? We start having thoughts. I want to eat something that's not good for me. Either it's not kosher or it's not healthy. I want to say something that's right or wrong. I want to do something that may be wrong. So that thought comes up, oh, I like to do it. So we can't control if the thought is going to come up, but what we could control is not to think about it. Or let's say something is bothering you a lot. We have control to say, you know what, I'm not going to think about it anymore. The same thing with speech. We have control of what's going to come out of our mouth or not. The same thing is action. We have control of what we're going to do and we're not going to do. And that's what we have to realize. We say it's not what happens to us in life, it's how we deal with it. What happens to us in life is not in control. But we have control if we're going to allow ourselves to think about it all day, if we're going to allow ourselves to speak about it and do it. What we could do is kind of tune it out or start doing something else and stop thinking about this thing. You know, when you think about something, how you dislike someone, how you hate someone, how someone wronged you, how whatever the thing may be, you're letting your enemy or the enemy thought in your head rent free. And that's what we have to work on. Someone wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, you know, I feel bad. I feel I'm very selfish. I don't like helping people. And it bothers me and I'm very depressed about it. I go to therapy about it. So Rebbe said, I'll give you advice. Next time you're in school and you're sitting, it was a girl in high school, and you're sitting in the dining room and you get up to go get yourself another cup of water or get yourself another fruit from the cafeteria, ask a friend next to you, could I get a fruit for you? Could I get a cup of water for you? Even if you're not feeling it, but once you start doing it, it starts affecting you. And this is something so important. And the reason why it's so important, because the biggest impact in our life is how we're going to feel about things. What affects us the most, how we feel about, like we said, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with what happens to you. Your thought and our speech and our action, we have 100% control over that. So my dear friends, and that's what Jericho was, and that's why Joshua was successful. So my dear friends, if you're feeling a certain way, we have to work on ourselves that we have control over. That's the lock to our life, to stop thinking about it. You say, what should I do? I'm thinking about it. So you know what? Go somewhere else and start getting involved in something else. I was once talking to someone that was going through a very hard time in life. And I said, a very, very difficult time in life. They had a child that was very sick, and they lost their business and everything. I said, so how did you get on? He said, very simple. Every day I got up and I just focused on something that I got to work on. And as soon as you start thinking about something else, that affects how you feel and that affects your day. So may God bless us all, that we should realize that nobody, only ourselves, control our thought, our speech, and our action. And even for a moment, a negative thought comes into our head, like right now, we have the power to hit the X and turn it off and start thinking about something else. Shabbat Shalom.